Welcome back to another episode of Driving with Wander and Wonder. I'd like to do a quick check-in just to see how my personal life reflects my philosophies and how I'm attempting to strive towards the ideals that I hold so dear, the ideals which shape my worldview, and my worldview being the way which one should live, consisting of everything I've talked about, everything I've rebuked in all of my previous videos. So currently I am attempting to get more of a sense of independence. This is from relationships in general, romantic, social, getting space, even just from my town. The way that I understand the status quo in my town will reflect out back through me wherever I go, and to influence my own internal idea of what the status quo is. I'm going to travel to different places, but right now the big travel has already happened, and that is having moved from a suburban setting to more of that of sub-rural. So that's not to say a country home where everything is absolutely silent and pastoral and there's nothing but nature, but very, very close to that, closer in fact than I've ever been in my entire life. And with the way that the economy is and the way that my philosophy of work is, I've got a lot more striving to do before I can become fully realized insofar as my ideals of what home could be, etc. Whatever. Anyways, this solitude offers me a new playing field. Solitude in general will offer one a new playing field to experience that which is not part of their routine. Routine as well could be considered as part of the status quo. This is to expand the definition of the status quo, not simply to mean that which one would expect from the public, but it would also include that which one would expect from their own daily partaking in life. And you can even think of routinely tasks having such a routinely nature that one can understand them and actually separate mentally from them in an act of automatic work. When you're doing something without presence or with presence, when you are able to control whether or not you want to be present in the moment, or if you want to wander internally while you're doing a physical task, that's all part of having a task embedded so deeply into one's own status quo, into one's own routine, that you're actually able to identify it as part of a routine, so far that it becomes like the automatic breathing or blinking or beating of your heart. So I'm offered a new playing field, within this new place, where I have quite a bit of solitude, quite a bit of time to think, and time to examine my own actions. So after a very long time of having believed that these videos, these linear speaking videos, would suffice in exchange for me kind of slowing down on my writing, I pretty much decided that writing is a different form of thinking. It's more intentional, whereas this is very much fly by the wayside. This is just thoughts in, thoughts out, trying to expand upon what I really know by thinking in a linear way and keeping pace with that of a normal conversation. Writing is a lot more intentional, and it can allow you to make decisions that you're, based on what you're going to say. This is with more forethought. And I like to think of forethought as another type of stat, something which I don't even want to name, because if I were to name it the way that it's colloquially referred to, it would imbue it with such definitions as to maybe even take away from the actual power of that thing. You could even think of it as choosing, realizing, as witnessing, and not just witnessing, because I feel as though this thing that we're talking about is another spectrum where there are different stages reached based on certain thresholds, and we could say that being alive in an automatic role, that routine which you know so well, could actually I just witnessed myself and threw myself off. That, trying to keep this flow state. So the lowest tier of this new concept that we're going to talk about, we're not going to name yet, would be automatic. You are partaking in life as an automaton. Your only thoughts are on your work. And that is not, we can get confused when we begin to think of tiers as left to right, because we read left to right. We can say, oh, there's the front and there's the back. We don't want to be near the back. We don't want to think of this the way that ascendance culture has so often thought about the chakra system. We need to open the third eye, we need to open the crown, we need to connect with all these things. Then people are, oh no, what's really important is grounding. We're on either end of the spectrum. And what we really have to realize is that no matter where you are on the spectrum, there is a purpose for each. This is not, I'm not talking about the autism spectrum. Wherever you are on this spectrum of this thing that we're talking about, it will serve a purpose. So being 100% present in actions that you're partaking of, even if they are routinely, is a form of focus that is, I'm just trying to stay completely away from buzzwords. Any word which will hold more strength and has more culture around it than I'm comfortable dealing with, I'm going to try to replace with a synonym as best as I can on the fly. But we are going to, as we look at this spectrum, we're going to examine each more thoroughly. So what happened to me during the middle of this video was I began to witness my own actions taking place. This was not a conscious effort to witness. This was more or less a transition into a different state of mind. And when you are looking at another individual, you cannot tell, well, unless you're very sensitive, you cannot tell what state of mind they're in. Are they in their automatic, routinely flow? This can apply to things outside of work. This can apply to, the same chill that you've been going to for a couple of years, once a week. This can apply to how you act at family events. The status quo is so far beyond just how things, it's so far beyond the definition of how the public are. It's so far beyond the definition of oh, you're just going to go into automatic mode while you work. It's not while you work, it's while you live. It's your entire experience. If your entire experience is automatic, you're missing a crucial nutrient. That nutrient is that of novelty, that of new experience. And there is a certain beauty in accepting the routine, but that is more involved with the second stage of what we're talking about on the spectrum. So the witnessing of partaking in the event, the awareness internally to say, oh wow, I'm having a conversation with somebody right now and I really don't know what I'm about to say. If you're thinking about that while you're talking to somebody else, you have begun to witness. If you're working out, if you're doing a sport, if you're on stage and you begin to think, oh, people are looking at me, how's my body even moving right now? Do I still look cool? You're starting to see stage 2 of this thing that we're not going to name. So you can bring awareness to different tasks while you're partaking in them, while also witnessing. Because to be aware and to witness is different than to simply partake in a task with your full attention. To be aware and to witness is while you can focus and be aware and witness, you're going to potentially be putting like a little bit more of your own personal essence into everything that you're doing. This is a form of adding that which is divine. We like to think, or we've seen in the Bible, that the kingdom of heaven is within, and I honestly think that what we're capable of with our own minds, and not to say that, oh, we're God and that's what heaven is, but I'm just saying, like, when there is some sort of connection to the way that one is internally to that of the divine, and the same thing applies externally. The body is a reflection, made in God's image. Like, there's plenty to back up both the internal and external reflection of divinity in the human being. But when we look internally, when we have awareness of that which we are doing, while we're doing it, we put a little bit of our own intention, like, we're doing things very intentionally. I want to move exactly like this while I'm putting this here, and you can, like, that is adding a little bit of magic to any task that you're partaking in. So, the next thing on the spectrum is more related to the second one than the first one, but that is, it is somewhat of a breakaway. That is to violate the status quo with full awareness. So you are exiting the pattern of routine, and this is by implementation of that force which we cannot name. But when you're aware that you are going to do it, and you do it, you have entered stage 3. This is a violation of the status quo. This is doing something which is out of your ordinary, which you're going to change. You're going to have such a dramatic effect on the status quo. Just like a still lake can be thought of as the status quo, a stone in the lake will affect the entire body of water. And the bigger the stone, the bigger the effect. So we are intentionally throwing a stone into this lake. We are making waves, and what is normal is no longer. Something new is happening, and people will all have their own reactions. A lot of the time, this is where maybe a fight breaks out, maybe a fire breaks out, an emergency, like something different has happened. Like, these are negative examples, but you could even just say, like, expressing oneself like so deeply that, like, people are like, oh my God, like, it can be scary, it can be surprising. Like, people, you really find out more about how people are in these moments of extreme novelty than you would during the routinely pattern of life. So you have violated the status quo. This could even be like just wearing something crazy. It can be simple and intentionally. I might as well just wrap this up. After you've violated the status quo, intentionally, we can think of a stage even further on. And this is why I was like, don't think of this as a spectrum, even though that's how we can refer to it. Violation of the status quo unintentionally. And I like to think of this as far away from an unintentional commiseration of the status quo as possible. I like to think of this as somewhat connecting even, but at the same time being as far away as possible. Because if you are to violate the status quo unintentionally, what has come over you? It's truly the most mysterious of all, because we are by design not looking for new reason. I feel like it's really hard to put this into words, but when something comes over somebody, and so far as they just can't take it anymore, something just needs to change. It's a true deficiency in this nutrient, where one's, well, I don't want to use the word, but it's almost as though one outburst can lead to the next. One act can lead to the next. A lot of times, when this force is implemented, you don't feel drained by its use. It's almost as though it creates a feedback loop with something else internally, like the animal body thrives on the use of this force, which is implemented through the animal body, but it uses the faculties of the mind, of the spirit, of the intellect, of the soul to operate. And there is something of a feedback loop, and you could even equate this state as being somewhat of a manic psychosis, even with some people. But it doesn't ever have to get that far. It can be as simple as making your bed in the morning to start a chain reaction of events, which actually rely on this force. And we don't think about this force as something which is affected by what we eat, by what we do. We just expect that force to be under our control at all times, and when it's not, we say, "Oh, we're having an off day." And I think that's really interesting, because you begin to see a binary, and what does an off day really mean? Like, what does it really mean to be off? And we begin to see this awareness in a new light. We can ask the question, what did you do to be on? What did you do to not to exhaust the energy, not to exhaust this force, but what did you do to exercise, to metastasize, to energize? What did you do with this force? Because having done anything at all will merit an increase. And it can go so far, and people have different sensitivities to this force, different exponential curves as to how this force gains strength through its implementation. But honestly, once it's harnessed, some people have a hard time turning it off. And we could call this the dragon of grandiosity. When it's awoken, it almost is akin to the myth of the serpent and the spine, the energetic snake that's coiled at the base of the spine. I don't want to go into metaphysical systems regarding the snake, but that is to say, when the serpent has awoken, when you are fully energized and you feel your full awareness, and you are intentionally intentionally partaking in tasks, both which are required routines and maybe even a required novelty, you begin to have higher thoughts. You begin to have more profound thoughts, or those types of thoughts which are more perceivedly profound when you are in a heightened state of sensitivity. So as you progress throughout your day, having harnessed the shit out of this force, maybe it's 2-3 p.m., you really have to focus on winding down, because there is no one that can handle this type of energy at all times without incurring a cost. A lot of the time it can be a biological debt from having missed sleep, a biological debt from having, fed on, not milk, not meat, but wisdom. Having fed on, I don't want to say wisdom, having fed on novelty. Like you must accept that your body is as much a part of your ability to harness this force as your mind. And you have to partake in routinely tasks, those tasks which may seem mundane when acted out as an automaton, but can gain new significance when acted out via the method of the second stage in the spectrum, which it's a spectrum of a force which still will remain unnamed, because I know what it is, and it's not, having named it myself, I realize it's unimportant. I feel as though maybe I will tell you eventually if you haven't figured it out already. And it's not a joke. But having balanced routinely tasks with those tasks which are imbued with novelty, which inspires the soul, having harnessed and by its use energized and exponentially increased this unnamed force, and having balanced sleep, food, and energy, the life which the sun gives to all things, which circulates throughout all life, a life which perpetuates itself and has for as long as we can look back. We may find ourselves living as the highest possible potential of human being. I really know that these ideas are grandiose, or at least that these ideas are ideals. These are things which I believe are meant to be strived towards. In my experience, having understood what it means to be human, there are very few material things in this world which can really bring the level of profound happiness that a life well lived can really bring. And I stand on the shoulders of giants as I read many old books, old books which have survived based on their merit to civilizations or their importance to populations and folk, or maybe even aristocracies throughout history. So I like to influence myself. I like to influence my thoughts. I try my best to curate which I think, but at the same time I understand that my exposure to meme culture, my exposure to modernity, puts me in an interesting and nuanced space where I can, partake in reading the occult writings of Henry Cornelius Agrippa, while at the same time enjoying memes, that have Wojak and expanding consciousness and Pepe and all of that. So, this is my current position, exploring solitude, exploring creativity, exploring harnessing of the force which will remain unnamed. That's it. That's it for today. This has been Driving with Wander and Wonder. Again, Thanks for joining me, and I will talk to you soon, I'm sure.